politician dies and ends up at the pearly gates. St. Peter looks at him and finds his name in his book. So you're a politician? Well, yes. Is there a problem? Oh no, there is no problem. But we have a policy for people in your profession. You have to spend a day each in heaven and hell, and then you will be free to choose where you want to spend the rest of eternity. Why can't I choose now? Why do I have to spend a day in hell? Well, that is the policy. First, the politician spends a day in heaven. He sees angels singing and people playing harps. He finds heaven very boring for him. Next, he spends a day in hell. Upon arriving there, he expects to see barren wastelands with rivers of lava and people being boiled alive, but instead sees lush greenery and a large 5-star hotel in front of him. At the hotel entrance, he sees Satan wearing a tuxedo and sipping on a martini. This isn't what I expected hell to be. Oh, hell has been completely misrepresented. We have a luxury 5-star hotel with 7-course meals prepared by the best chefs. And we have all the sporting facilities you could imagine with a very large pool. All this is for free. So the politician spends the entire day playing golf and eating his meals by the poolside. At the end of the day, he sleeps in the most luxurious bed he could imagine in a very large suite. The next morning, when he wakes up, he is back at the pearly gates where St. Peter is waiting for him. So, what will it be? I can't believe I'm saying this, but I prefer hell. So the politician is transported back to hell, where he sees a barren wasteland illuminated only by the glow of rivers of lava, and hears the screams of people being tortured. The air is full of the stench of sulfur. Once again, he sees Satan in his tux. What happened to the hotel, the golf course, the pool, and all the greenery I saw yesterday? Well, yesterday we were campaigning. Today you voted.
Bluetooth connected.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Renson Jeffrey. This is the Workers' Rights Platform. We are broadcasting live on the Workers' Rights Network. Now, that was a little humor that we would have played here on the beginning or on the onset of this show. But I turned it over to the host, the real host, Kizia and Miss Allen. I'm playing. Yeah. Go ahead, take full lead.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. It is Trinbago Social Talkonomics. I'm your host, Keziah Aline. So we are just here this evening to deal with the ongoing topic of that 10% increase. Bear in mind, the show is not about politics and party. It's about government and governance. So let's go.
Well, as Ms. Kizia did say, it's about government and governance. So, all right, Ms. Kizia, I know I interrupt you a little bit.
That's okay. So, it happens. So let's bear in mind that the ongoing question is whether or not public servants will get that 10%. And I am saying, I've answered that question earlier today, and I'm going to answer it again. They can get the 10%. However, we cannot borrow to pay the 10%, because it means if we borrow to pay that 10% this year, we'll be borrowing next year to clear that bill and borrowing again to pay another 10%, or whatever would be the agreed upon increase at that particular time. So we cannot consider a 10% increase without ensuring that the economical status of the country is revamped, redesigned, and reinstituted to function the way it needs to produce and to have residual income. Meaning whatever it is we do must be able to continue after we've cleared our debts. And then we would be able to bank, we'd be able to save, and we'd be able to regain our international status economically. If we are not paying attention to the economical status, we're not looking too good right now. We're technically at the bottom of the barrel from being on top. From in the 70s being in the top 10 to being at the bottom. So
meaning what exactly is, there are all different persons and all different persons that listen to the broadcast as well. So what you mean by that? I mean, this program is to the average man on the street, and I don't expect you to just stop right there, Casey.
Well, the
But
thing is, if you pay attention to going to the bank or any lending institution to ask for a loan, you approach them and you present your needs, which is the purpose in which you want that money for. If you are unable to present a way in which you are going to pay it back, the bank could do one of the two things. Let's say if it's property that you're going for and it's a viable property, the bank may probably lend you the money. And anytime you falter, you may falter in a time when the value of the property would have already increased. They will seize that property from you. They may sell it back or may take it into their own ownership. And you would no longer have that property. Technically, it's the same status. Now, not indicating that someone, a company or an organization may own Trinidad and Tobago, but have you ever heard the phrase that when you borrow, you will always be the slave to the lender? It means you will never done pay him, especially if he is holding trump card on all your possessions. So that would be one scenario. But then there's the scenario where we could be denied. If you go to the bank and you ask for a loan and your plan does not look plausible to the bank, the property you're looking at does not have any liquidity, it does not have any viability to them, they will deny you. And being denied in a time when we are in desperate need, we need to ensure that whatever we are going for is something that worthwhile. It has to be a clear-cut plan as to what we are borrowing for, how we are going to be able to repay it, and then on top of that, how would it sustain us? So if you're borrowing money, it's always the best method to borrow to increase so that when you pay it back, you have something to fall back on. Now, last week we would have made mention of one of my, I would say my point of view, my POV, simply because not everyone would agree with it. But when a government needs to ensure that they profit for their country's survival, it means that anything possible, anything viable should be what they consider and look into. And we have just revamped almost, if not all, the medical facilities in Trinidad and Tobago. All it needs is an authority that will market and manage the operations for medical tourism to take place. The facility is already there. We may need one or two little things, and we need to probably look at the professionals that we have, the surgeons that we have, but we do have a couple fantastic ones. And when one of the callers was indicating that we are not ready for it, I had to indicate and remind that a lot of the Caribbean islands utilize our services already in the private sector. So now we need to establish an operation that will benefit not just the government, but the country, simply because once the government benefits, it trickles into the economic system, and then it trickles down to the man on the street, i.e., meaning it will trickle down to the public servants. Because that medical tourism is a billion-dollar industry. We have people leaving to go Barbados for the fertility clinic. We are in the exact same position as Barbados to offer a state-of-the-art facility clinic. We are even in a very competitive position for visual care surgeries. We are also in a very viable position to compete with cosmetic surgeries. May not be the extremely intense ones, But whatever we have the professionals available to do, we do. Minor, major cosmetics, whatever is necessary to tap into $1 billion industry. You cannot tell me with pretty much new facilities across the country that it cannot be done with some marketing. So that is one option. I have always indicated, rather since we started back this program, well, since the start of this program, it's been my opinion as well that another sugarcane factory sugar factory should be reopened. Because when we are importing what was the last statistics we had on the import of sugar into the country?
It was a couple of millions, a matter of fact, 6 point something million, and it would have reached the billions in certain years.
Broadcast. It did cite, to me it was billions I heard, but sometimes I get caught up in my days. I have a lot going on, so sometimes I may not have all the info up here. The computer getting old.
What computer is that?
But either which way, in the billions. So why are you telling me an industry that used to furnish us prior was in such uproar when it was closed back then that even the governments that had a problem with it being closed never reopened it? Because if I have land and I can make that land make money for me, that makes more sense to me than having land that would just sit there. So I would plant my fields, because it's my observation along the roadways in many of the areas where the sugarcane was actually being grown, sugarcane still grows there. And sugarcane is a short crop. Production in terms of the crop, but you would have generated the management and the processing section of it and allow the individuals that have the raw materials necessary to earn an income there as well. So if I know I can plant a certain percentage of my property and harvest that maybe 2-3 times a year and take it to the factory for processing and earn some money that I can set aside for a rainy day, because if I wasn't doing that, it means I wouldn't have had it. So I would have been able to put it away for a rainy day or do something that I really need to do with it. Why are you telling me it doesn't make sense? And on a flip side to that, sugar, we have the cocoa industry. You're going through Maracas Valley, Santa Cruz, some places in Trinidad and Tobago, you would see cocoa being grown. Why are we not revamping that industry? Because is it Belgium? They're one of the highest ranking chocolate producing countries. They pay a lot for the chocolate. But guess what? They don't grow chocolate there. So how would you tell me for industries that are there and you are seeing the decline in our black gold, both of them, meaning the pitch and the oil, that you are not transitioning into another stream of income that could sustain the economy, even if it's for a little bit? Because a little US is better than no US. Because tell me when Mr. Imbert had addressed the issue with all the US that was taken out of the local banks and invested into international banks, requested that it be returned. It was never done over 10 years in the last administration's office. So We didn't get them to bring it back. We don't have any. Why would you tell me a little bit would be better, not better than none? A little from a cocoa industry, a little from the sugarcane industry, which will save us because then we could produce for us and still export to the other islands which have US that we would be able to tap into. Yeah. Additionally, we still have all the hospitals that were just refurbished. So I would not stop beating that drum. Is it that we have governments that are reactive? My aunt have a saying, she does say, it's either you're slow or you're stupid and dofish. Because it can't be for real if you are not seeing what is right in front of your face when a blind man with wooden glasses in front of a brick wall and a bag on his head can see it.
Miss Allen, one out of the active person within the text, within the chat say, so give us a way that it can open back in a few steps. I mean, as a question that was thrown out to you. So
fair enough. Fair enough. So the feasibility study is there. Sugar is a demand. Chocolate is a demand. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now on the chocolate side, I think we'll be earning euros/pounds. Or if we so desire to tell them, you know what is US, we want US, but either which way, any currency is important because at this point we barely have any. So feasibility study has been established that it is a need. If the government is going to borrow money to pay the 10%, it is my humble opinion that we would purchase the required equipment because currently 1975 property is still standing there with what was the remnants of the last factory. Demolish it, reconstruct it, bring in the machineries. That could be done in a year if we're not operating on Trinidad standards. So if we have to bring in the Chinese to do that, then okay, suffer it to be so. But we will have some who beg to differ, so we can get our Trinidadians to understand the desperate need for it to be reestablished. Set it on a reconstruction timeline because you cannot do anything that is not specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time. No business plan, no governmental plan, nothing of the sort. If you want to buy a car, you're saying, well, in the next 6 months, I'd have saved enough money and I want to go to the bank and get some more money to buy a car, or I would have saved up enough money to buy a car. We outlined the feasibility study. The plan is to figure out how large the structure has to be to produce the number or the volume of sugar output that will facilitate our country and as many of the others within the CARICOM market that we can. Buy the equipment, hire the employees, and start production.
What I would have seen here in this study, and I mean, you know, we could get information from AI. Correct. And I am seeing that it could cost over a 9 years period. It could cost about $600 million.
Just about.
Yeah,
but guess what? When you said AI gave you a 9-year revamp?
Yeah, a 9 year. It could take about approximately 9 years. You know, that they talk about land development, factory construction,
land is already there.
No, well, you know, developing the land obviously go have some kind of substantial cost, and you know, the reconstruction or refurbishment of the factories that are already there, and it talk about operational costs, you know, financial support and subsidies and additional costs like competitive market prices outside there. And logistics expert and export infrastructure development. So what AI would have done there in this whole thing, they would have do a comprehensive analysis that would have stemmed from not just the entire course. It give a breakdown now in how it can be done. So to talk about the estimated cost of land development, they're talking about $15,000 to $20,000 per acre. That is how detailed it was.
But the thing is, because some years ago this research was done,
Okay.
and it is something possible to be done in 2 years. It's possible because the factory still sits on the property, but it's not in the state for manufacturing. So you're going to have to demolish it,
Okay.
recreate that factory setting, or reconstruct the factory, bring in the machinery that will go into it, and the production could start with the existing lands that already have canes on it. There are lands in Trinidad and Tobago, if a survey is done now, that still have a fair share of sugarcane on it currently. Many of them, Renison, you take the southern direction as often as possible. How many of those old fields do you still see have sugarcane on them? They may be in the hands of other owners. But if it is, the government outlines a plan encompassing the budget that would be required to purchase the sugarcane from the existing owners, not the land, just the sugarcane. Because having to maintain land and stuff, you don't want to be the ones responsible for that. You do not have I don't want to say that word, that word wouldn't sound too good. But we don't have the individuals that we can dedicate to the management of land. If the government takes control to reinstate what would be a sugar factory, whether they name it Tyranny 1975 or whatever else, the bottom line is it will need the help of the private owners of those properties right now. So a good figure has to be offered to buy in to what they already have. And there are so many other countries in the world that does it. This country that makes tequila, they themselves does the very same thing. The government does not have ownership of the properties. They buy the product, the produce, from individuals that already have it. So when we think about something being impossible, when it's possible, either which way, we've had so many years to review what other options were available to us. So if it so-called takes 9 years according to AI, though our research was done a couple of years ago indicating that it could be done in 2 years, obviously they were considering the Chinese intervention. But if it can be, the government, in terms of the land development that AI is speaking on, you utilize the land that is already with other owners, offering them a fee just for the crop. The government is not coming to take their land. They don't want to buy their land. They're buying the crop. And with the crop,
so we're talking about from more like a standpoint of having them do the job and the government come and buy the crop from them. Instead of taking responsibility for infrastructure and those type of things.
Exactly.
Present the land to them and tell them they have to make, just how Arawak does do it, a matter of fact. They have
Arawak,
like farmers farming
growers association. They don't own a coconut tree, but the people who own coconut tree could bring their coconut to them. It is assessed. They are given whatever is the value of their coconut, and whatever product has to be made from it is made by Coconut Growers Association. Same thing was the elements of Citrus Growers Association before they actually closed it down.
Okay.
So that cuts the time factor down to whatever it may be. Because if AI is saying it's 9 years, and I know a research was done indicating it would be 2 years. If we find some middle ground between there, it's better late than never at all. Because we're 15 years behind the last two government administration, and I think we're 20 years, or let me think, maybe 30 years behind the one that closed it down, and all the administrations since then that actually said they had a problem with it being closed but never reopened it. You must have a matrix. Any business, any government must have a matrix. You cannot generate income or monies from one source. And now that we're down two sources, which is our cash cow and our stars, what are they being replaced with? My recommendation is the $1 billion medical tourism option. Among the other options available, what about recycling? If we recycle for most of the other islands, including ourselves, the scrap iron industry that has not been doing much for a couple months going into good years right now. I don't have these statistics because it wasn't my aim to mention those type of things this week. But when we are indicating that there are no viable options, we don't need one good viable option. We just have to milk the ones we do have. Because once those scrap metal is shipped out, that's US coming into the country. We literally don't recycle the metal. It's done abroad. So what you're telling me, what I'm trying to understand what the government is really trying to say. I am not going to have all the answers. I am just giving my opinion. Because I am the blind man standing in front of the brick wall with a garbage bag on my head. And I still seeing it.
Well, I see that vivid description you would have now that you would have now placed there. Now, Kezia, I realized that I was hearing a little feedback within my phone, within my headphone, as a matter of fact.
Right.
And I realized the guest, your guest would have appeared on the platform. But I just want to prime the guest a little bit. I mean, we was talking about the initial conversation was based on the 10% offer that would have been done by trade unions. I'm sure you're guessing who is the guest right about now. You understand? But I ain't gonna pop that balloon yet. I mean, the recent increase in Trinidad and Tobago with the minimum wage from $17.50 to $20.50 per hour, it would have raised the average person's salary who work on minimum wage.
Raise their what? Hold on. You raised their what?
The minimum wage. The minimum wage was $17.50.
The minimum wage raised their what? Their salary who?
It raised the salary. It raised the salary.
Salary who? That ain't a salary, sir. That ain't a salary.
No, well, that is what I'm saying. I mean, and there's where I was going into the whole spin of the thing. Now, their salary at the $20.50 per hour, it would have put them in a bracket of $3,553. Now
that is somebody's rent.
And that is where I'm going at.
All
now
so the government is telling me they want to give a 10% when it have even more pressing matters to address. Give the 10%, it is earned. But guess what? When you give the 10%, everything go up under the sun. So that $3,500 a month would now be a rent of $4,000 because every manufacturer, every landlord, they don't know how to check. I don't know how gas will be raised by $1 and some cents or some cents, and products raised by $5 and change. When I did marketing and business management, I understood that pricing and costing required certain elements to be observed. So if you tell me a product you buy now was $15, gas raised by a few cents, and that product jumped by $10, I see a big problem in that.
True.
So that minimum wage, they need to miss me with that. Because that mess right in front of the fan, and it's on the lowest speed right now.
So it taking long to come off. As I said, to the audience, I put the guy up on the screen. I don't know if you know that fella name, but Mr. Oral Sanders,
Oh
what we
yes,
have to
our
say
my
concerning this
pressure
whole
going through the roof.
of this whole conversation.
Let me say a pleasant good night, comrades. Thank you all very, very much for facilitating me tonight. Tonight was really one of those challenging. The past 48 hours, in fact, was a bit challenging from a personal point of view in terms of my family. My wife wasn't feeling well and she had to be hospitalized, but thank God she was sent home just an hour or so ago. So I'm straight from the hospital. I made sure I settled her down a bit and I'm joining you all. So let's go.
We was as I was saying, we was talking about the issue of this 10%, and is it feasible? A matter of fact, a lot of questions would have been posed. The number one question is that what does this increase really mean? If they get this 10%, is it enough to address the inflation and the rising cost of living in Trinidad? How does it impact the private sector and minimum wage workers? Is this is set towards equality or just political distraction? And these are the questions that we need to really ask here on this program here tonight, because a lot of people feel that they're going and get it, and just the other day Aka should have asked when this increase would have taken place, and the Prime Minister would have added in a few. I go tell you when it go start, because I don't want to say it, but it needs to be said. There are people. A matter of fact, let me be ambiguous. When somebody do not want to be held to a particular standard, they say certain things. You understand what I'm saying? Now, if you are a leader, you're supposed to be willing to be for people to hold you to a particular standard. So, Oral, with your experience within this whole situation, what does that mean? I mean, if the public sector would have gotten this 10% increase, what could really happen to the economy? Because if you give public sector this 10%, what will happen to the private sector? What are really going to take place?
Let me breathe because I really need to take this one.
Well. It's a very interesting concern you would have highlighted. So, in order for me to, to really delve into that issue, we need to go back a bit. And let's take it even in terms of the recently concluded PSA's elections. And Kez and I would have had this conversation some months ago.
We
And
will.
she did tell me that my campaign would have been a bit challenging because I try to be very practical. In fact, I was on the other chat talking about it today. And our campaign, we looked at the figures, we looked at our GDP, we looked at our recurrent expenditure, we looked at the debt, we also looked at the other trade unions that would have accepted the government's initial offer of the 4%. And looking at is the fact that no other union would have been able to bring
Oral, I feel like you're having a call on your side. It kind of
to move the CPU from that 4% offer towards an upward trajectory. That did not appeal at all. And we recognize that even when we looked at our brothers and sisters, what would have transpired with their negotiations, we recognize that there were some countries who actually did not give public officers any increase. In other words, they got 0% for that period of 2014 to 2016 and 17 to 19. So we would have gone out there looking at it and trying to be responsible, indicated to our fellow public servants that we did not want the 4%. We wanted to make that lucidly clear that we did not want the 4%. But the economic realities was that it was in our best interest to accept it because it would not, it at least it would have alleviated some form of pain and suffering that many public officers were enduring and continue to endure. However, the incumbents, their campaign was the complete opposite. We call it financial recklessness. However, that is what, as you rightfully said, comrade, that is what the people clearly wanted to hear. And they actually were saying that they reject the 4%, and that myself and my team were 4%ers, as they coined us, and that they even tried to box us into a political element in terms of trying to say that we were pro-government and we were hired by the government, which there was no truth into that argument. But as I said, we were trying to be responsible because we would have had the experience of remembering what would have transpired back in the 80s when the then Prime Minister George Chambers was voted out of office, because he would have offered a 6% offer to public servants, and public servants rejected that, and they brought in a new Prime Minister, which was A.N.R. Robinson, may God rest his soul. And instead of us getting the 10% that was promised, we actually lost that percentage of 10% salaries. We lost COLA, we lost several allowances, VAT, and etc. All the austerity measures were added to our existing burdens. So in other words, I'm saying...
Hold on, Oral. I just want to interject just for a quick second. The same people that had voted in N.A.R. Robinson for change,
Correct.
the same people that were voting him out, and were some of the same people that were highly participating or abiding, not even abiding, but who would have been in favor of the insurrection itself.
Correct.
Because they found that it was the right way to respond to a government that suppressed the people and oppressed
and was uncaring and seemed uncaring towards the people. So we need to understand that context in order to juxtapose it to our current predicament.
So Oral, you would have said it was financial recklessness.
It was,
yes, on the part of incumbents.
If it is, you aim only to pay that money out, because when that money is paid, you borrow to pay this year, you're going to borrow next year to pay off what you borrowed, and then you're going to borrow again to pay the next request.
In other words,
you can't live that way.
Exactly. In other words, what Kezia is saying is that there are two ways you could have looked at it, right? If it is we were to get the 10% as a one-off payment or a back pay based on it, how would that be sustainable going forward? And as I was saying a while ago, it isn't because I want to bore the audience, but I wanted you to understand it from a historical context.
Okay.
That when these austerity measures kick in, my fellow public officers are always, because we are the government's employees, we are the ones who are immediately impacted by any of these austerity measures. So we were trying to balance our expectations and our experiences, because they say your experiences have to be your best teachers. So we didn't want a situation for a government, and it didn't matter to us whether it was PNM, UNC, PDP, it did not matter to us. We are looking at it from the point of view, or we were looking at it from the point of view that whatever salary increases we are going after, we would want it to be done in such a way that it could be sustainable.
This is it.
And we didn't only want it to only be in cash, because we recognize due to the economic shortfalls, we could have, with good conversations and good negotiations, we could have looked at bonds, we could have looked at stocks and shares, would have said, we could have looked at land, home ownership, we could have looked at so many
that the people don't have, because
Correct.
You are paying rent.
Yes.
So if you are given land and the opportunity or grant to build, that rent money becomes money you could do something else with.
Not only that too, we were even looking at the possibility of having bigger rebates in terms of income tax for public officers who have to work and use their vehicles and all these sort of things.
Listen.
Parking facilities that are owned by the government, owned by the state, where you're paying $8 and $10, probably at $50 a day or $100.
No, but hold on. If you don't want
yes,
to pay that and you park on the road, there's
and
nothing
again,
keeping the wrecker from taking you.
or worse yet, a shower rain falling Port of Spain and your car flood out because of where it parked. Because when you're inside
Exactly.
the high-rise buildings, you don't even know rain falling until you really
Exactly.
watch outside, you know. So in other words, we were looking at several things, and our main focus was to ensure that whatever measures that a government, notice what I said, a government was going to implement, they would not want to cut off the public service, because they start by contract workers, by terminating contract workers, which there has been a proliferation of contract employees over the years. And then you would want to dip into the salaries and allowances by stymieing, because I'll tell you all something, over the years, many resources that public officers required to just do their job wasn't forthcoming. So people were getting their salaries, yes, but because of the escalating cost of living, your disposable income, and I know we're using a lot of economic terms, but disposable income for those persons who, I don't want to lose you all, it just simply means after you pay your bills, that little chichi that you have,
Yeah, your savings, your party line money.
Correct.
That after your commitments.
Whereas you would have been paying, let's say, $10 for a beer certain places, now you have to pay 12, 20. I went out with my wife and the last weekend and it's $20 for a beer. And that is when you're talking about your disposable income. So something that you would have paid, you would have gotten 2-4 years ago, you could only get one. So clearly, from as simple as even going out with your family on a weekend to pay for the gas to say you're going Maracas.
That's your minimum wage salary right there.
Correct. And you're paying more. And then you're running the risk of the police or licensing officers stopping you to charge you for the little smooth tire that you just was hoping you get enough money, you're saving enough money to buy a brand new tire, but they didn't get the money in time before the licensing officers or the police stop you. So that now, you have to pay $1,000 now of what you don't have. So this was the economic reality. So getting back to the substantive issue of the 10%, the incumbents of the PSA were able to sell that dream, because it wasn't only about the 10%. They actually said they were even going after the consolidation of cola, which is a different ballgame altogether. Now, in principle, I had agreed with the incumbents that we have always gotten the consolidation of cola. And what consolidation of cola means, comrades, is a simple concept that when you're going into negotiations, you are supposed to add your existing cola to your salary and then implement the percentage of whatever you and the CPO would agree upon. That was not the offer for public officers or any other unions during that negotiation period by the CPO. He was saying no consolidation of cola, which would have meant they just adding the 2% for the 14 to 16 period and adding 2% from the 17 to 19 period. So I try to break it down for people to understand so that we wouldn't lose them in the conversation. So
if you have any info, written info that we can put up on the pages and stuff like that. So people who really want to understand, because everyone is thinking that we're here about politics and party, we supporting PNM. PNM done go on.
Correct. Correct.
If we have another government come to do the exact same thing, what would you all say? Is the same people who vote in this government will vote them out because why? Well, they get what all they want. We are trying to level the playing field and allow you all to see what is actually going to be required to get the things we need. Because when I'm thinking 10%, we still need a rent assessment board. We have a public utilities and a Ministry of National Housing that does nothing where rent assessment is concerned.
There's a free economy. They look at it as a free economy, and
Okay.
that they're free to do what they want.
But the government role is still to streamline what happens even in a free economy. Unless I have the terms mixed up, I am still under the impression that a blind man with wooden glasses could see the vision. Because
Well,
at
but
the end of the day, price
yes,
stipulation, regulation, and scheduling, where that going? I remember as a child walking into a shop and you could not have that hang up there. Imagine, let me highlight this just for a quick minute. SM Jalil used to put the price of their product on it, right?
yes,
If chubby was $1 or classic cola was $2, that was the maximum you were allowed to sell it for, and it was as a cold beverage.
yes.
That same product used to be sold for $2.50 and $3, all kind of ridiculous prices. You go to movie town, you buy a bag of popcorn, tasteless like that. No butter, no nothing. I don't know what movie town and these other companies doing right now with presenting goods. You're buying chicken and fries, and you're trying to understand what you're spending money on. The price going up, the quality going down, but the poor people still feeling it.
Well, what I would have recognized if I were to add to that argument is something I call shrinkflation. I don't know if you're familiar with it too.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Shrinkflation.
Very familiar.
What shrinkflation is for those persons who are looking on is that if you could throw your minds back to certain snacks and the sizes of certain snacks and the cost of it, what you are actually seeing now is that the size, let's say a pack of bourbon biscuits, back then, it could have actually been a snack to full you.
Yes.
Now you need to buy 2 packs of the same bourbon
You're still
biscuit.
saying that you need to buy a whole box.
Yeah, because what they have done is actually done some research and actually gotten it to be a smaller size of biscuit. Now it's the same name, the same packaging, but the net weight is different because it's lighter, because it is smaller, but you're paying the same price, or in some instances, you're paying more. So shrinkflation has taken place in the manufacturing.
I just want to shrinkflation. Just the other day, I bought a tin of corn.
Yes.
Do you know there's a gram? I think it's 340 grams on the tin.
Yes.
That is supposed to be the weight of the actual product in the tin.
Yes.
You know, when I throw out the corn out of the tin, just about half the tin was the corn, the rest was water. The total grams on the tin was inclusive of the water, the tin, and then they gave me what little corn they wanted. I could
Correct.
call names, but again,
Yes.
need to call names when we have a government willing to step in there to understand the people on the ground. We don't just need a 10%. We
This is
need
the
a
point.
cost of living that is achievable for everyone. There are basic standards of living: clothes, food, shelter, communication, transport, and all of these 5 basic needs are through the roof.
Correct. Because I was listening to you all when I came in, I was listening to you all about some of the suggestions that you're making in terms of us being able to raise forex and to bring in, some capital. And one of the ideas that I was playing, separate and apart from the medical tourism that we would have discussed last time, and I saw you did an excellent job of reminding persons of the medical tourism. I was looking at it, something that would even be fast-tracked, even faster than that, which is the Chinese market. We all are witnessing what is taking place with America in terms of the new president implementing tariffs in a way that he's trying to renegotiate for the benefit of the Americans. But who is picking up the slack for those volumes of products that are coming or that were going into America? And I am saying that Trinidad and Tobago is uniquely positioned in terms of our geographic location to take up at least a percentage of that slack. I mean, our economy is too small, but let's look at it. If it is,
A percentage is good enough.
Yes, but our position, we can do it because we could be the shipping hub, the Panama of the Caribbean, in terms of letting China we make some arrangements with them, and we have so much of land available close to ports and so forth. Let's put in an entire area like a city, a shipping area where they could bring in their stock and stock it in Trinidad, and from Trinidad they send it to the
Send it to
Americas.
elsewhere.
Correct, or through the Caribbean. So all the places that are having problems with the cost escalating by doing trade with America, and then it is shipped to us, which is carrying up the cost. Why not cut out the middleman and let the shipments come to Trinidad and Tobago? Because I have seen the Chinese community has grown in spite of the tough economic times that we have been going through. Their business enterprise model has ballooned in such a way that there's more Chinese shops in every corner, super centers. They started off with just groceries. Now they are having so many different products coming directly from China. And when you walk in those stores, it's not to say that you were looking for this item, but you see a product there that you was always wanting to get that product, and it becomes now readily available to you and at a reasonable cost. So what I'm saying is that we could use Trinidad. Trinidad could position itself so that we could be able to collect these items coming direct. So China ships it to us, and then we now ship it to the Americas, we ship it to the Caribbean, the Commonwealth, wherever we could position ourselves. And that doesn't really cost us much. And the Chinese government would be able to finance such a venture. So it's not like if we would now have to fork out that money. We just have to facilitate it by like this other issue, comrade sister, the ease of business.
Mr. Saunders, before you go on, I would like to inform the callers that this is a live. The viewers, a matter of fact, that this is a live broadcast. You could call in. The numbers is on the screen: 333-2176. I know some of you want to cuss up Oral Saunders. I know some of you want to cuss up Kizel. I'm not Kizel. Kezia. Yes, yeah. So I mean, you could
to take it, and let me tell you why. Because these same people that want to wash them out now would be the same people that washing them out if UNC does not do what they want, if they don't get what they're looking for, and at the end of the 5 years, these same people washing them out now and want to wash them out will definitely be the ones voting them out.
So we're saying that you are prepared to take the phone call no matter how.
My back broad.
All right. Oral, I hope you're back broad too. Yeah. I hope
you can. Because I'm not about politics on party. I am for my country. I am for the citizens of my country, and I am for a government that will do what is necessary. I am not here to bash the government. I am here to let them know there are options available to us, and employ them in order for all of us to survive.
You know where you now said it? You know where you now said it? You know where she now said it? She could take the government. You see, there are people saying that government, that UNC done win election. Why are you don't show him out? You see, people don't understand. I want to address this comment here tonight. People don't understand that election is step one. Step two is governing and running the country. There are people that could win election. A matter of fact, look, we get the first phone call for the night.
Let's go.
Good night, caller. Good night. Hello, good night. Good night. Hello.
Hello, good night.
Yes, good night.
Are you hearing me clearly?
Clearly, we hear you loud and clear.
Okay. The good night to you,
Mr. Oral Saunders and Kezia. Yeah.
Good night, comrade sister.
Good night, ma'am.
Yes, I want to tackle the young man there first on his idea with having the Chinese coming to Trinidad and, using here as a transshipment, to ship, goods to the Caribbean, etc., etc. You can't talk like that really, because it has a lot of geopolitics playing off with the US and the Caribbean, with these Chinese setting up business in these Caribbean countries. I'm talking about CARICOM countries.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know right now he want them out of the Panama Canal because of that same thing. He want them out of Jamaica, Guyana, and I think he will come all here in Trinidad. So you see that what you talk about there,
Mhm.
it can't happen. Not with this Trump administration. Okay? Because as you know too, it have a trade war, and this trade war is with he and the Chinese. So he really don't want them in the Caribbean, and especially here, Trinidad. And this government, he will have them like puppets. This is a puppet government we have here. They have to follow United States of America lead. And they already said they're going to, follow the policies, which they don't know will be very, very strict because apparently this government not paying attention to a lot of the geopolitics, certain things happening in the region. They just making a lot of foolish statements, and they just going along with the dreams where I don't see coming true, but they're going to mash up the place in tutus. Someone told me on the chat there that PNM mash it up. Well, what PNM took about 9 years and a half to really do some damages, but the speed they're going at with a lot of spending they intend to spend, which is unnecessary right now because we need so much things to attend to. For example, we need to attend to the open borders by sea. We have to get energy security, which is a big, big problem. And they're going all over the place begging and people insulting us. Where we have gas, we should just drill, baby drill, before we end up having shortages with these products that we have to import. All this talk about refinery opening up, well, is left to be seen. But if you have a country with energy issues, you don't have energy security, we're in big problem because as everybody know, we sell oil and gas to see about our economy. So the thing that we have to diversify immediately, and we have the lands there, is agriculture. I say so. All this talk about medical tourism, okay, fine, but agriculture first. Let us feed ourselves to cut costs, and we could go.
Is she here?
Hello?
Now, Kola, I understand that you're saying agriculture. I am not saying not to put it there because that will be a module to focus on as well. But we need the money now. And with all our hospitals recently renovated, that is a market that is open to tap into. Children
well,
matters,
miss, I'm not attacking you really, I say yes to that. That is there, right? That is there. Another thing we have to look at too, this country, well, other Caribbean countries was told by the Trump administration that we have to get rid of the Cuban doctors. So if we really have to get rid of them, we would have to get doctors from elsewhere together with, local nurses and doctors. So all these hospitals they have now that they refurbish and new ones like the Arima General Hospital, Port of Spain coming up, we don't have the staff. So in the meantime, we could do some agriculture. I talking about the government. I'm not talking on what
unemployed medical persons in different fields, whether it's nursing, visual, surgical. There's a number of them. I don't know oral if you can find some light there, but I know a few people who have studied.
Wow.
And they're not in books right now.
I not hearing the lady clearly,
Just so we had a little feedback from on the next side, but sorry, man. I'm called back now. Let the gentleman answer. We had some feedback on this side.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so,
Right.
yes. Okay.
Well, let me thank the caller for her sentiment, but I would just like to humbly beg to differ. And I understood the geopolitics that she's talking about, but she has to understand that America is doing what is in their best interest, and they are entitled to do such. And in fact, a lot of persons would have voted overwhelmingly for Mr. Trump to go along the path that he is. But what I'm saying is that there will be a shortfall in the interim because these things are not going to be implemented overnight. Just to negotiate new trade balances with all of their partners it is definitely taking some time. And while it is taking some time, the cost of basic items are escalating. So each country is a sovereign one and has a sovereign government. And therefore, we are not trying to, or the suggestion that I would have made, come on, sister, is that this is a temporary fix because what Kez and I are talking about, we are looking at things that could bring in money to our country, US money into our country in the shortest piece of time, the shortest space of time. Because agriculture is a very good idea. We like agriculture.
We have to eat.
Correct. And
but the money is not there right now.
Not only that,
viability.
But not only that too, but exactly the viability, come on, sister, because what we have is pretty a last name.
Hold on. Just so, Mr. Harold, we have our second caller. Good night, caller. Hello, good night. Caller, listen to us in the phone now. So, we missed that call.
Yes. Right. So the agriculture, I would have looked at television recently and saw some persons would have attacked a gentleman's animals that was practically worth thousands, and they just chop up the animals and so forth. We do not have the discipline for agriculture. Agriculture is not just going and planting the back
on that scale.
Correct.
To generate the kind of money we need to revamp the economy.
Right, because you have to do this by the acres, and first of all, you can't afford to hire persons, and even the persons who you could afford, we would have seen on another network, those persons turning on the owners of the property, robbing them themselves, although they would have given them a chance to work for them, pay them, put them up in their little house, give them, feed them, clothe them, and they're still turning around and robbing you. Imagine for strangers. So we have ill-disciplined society that does not have the supporting mechanisms to really support that agricultural venture on the way or on the scale, as Kes is saying, that would be able to generate the types of income that we are looking at. We are looking at fast turnover, Forex, because that is our problem. We would have seen some new discoveries on board.
Once we have Forex, we have opportunity for international investors.
For everybody and for everything.
No, now before we go on, there is somebody on the chat that causing some serious discomfort to other to other people who are viewing the program. So, Mr. Banwari, you have some respect now. There's a public forum. You don't have to use some of the words that you're using on the chat. And if it come down to that, we go block you. Don't be on them kind of thing. We saying all kind of thing that I don't itself say.
But what I would want to tell the comrade, with all due respect, this is an intellectual conversation that is taking place. This is an adult conversation. And once you're dealing with adults, we have differences of opinions. And we discuss it respectfully. So
true.
For someone
but oral, that may be so, but once they have stimulating the patient, because they could come up with idle responses.
Yes.
That means nothing, would accumulate to nothing, and we're still in the same position. When we are trying to generate a caucus that would allow the government to see that there are opportunities, everything you promised is at the fingertips once you follow the right channels.
Correct. And not only that too, but what I have learned
But
over the years is that everyone wants to box you in. They want to box you into political boxes. And this conversation is
This
beyond,
is about politics.
well,
it's not
well,
about
Mr. Saunders, I want to tell you about our next question. He said, look, the guy, same guy, Banwari, he said 2 years good friends from in St. Anne, so they work together.
one.
he said, he said comically,
But
No,
rather
no, no, well,
hear
no,
me.
no. Does he have a point he would want us to look at? Because
well,
what we want to do, right? We are not enemies to the government, and that's what I
No, we are
need
not.
to be
They're not
abundantly clear.
understanding that.
We are not enemies of the government. We want the government to succeed. Because if the government, how the catchphrase was, when the UNC wins, everyone wins. If they
That is
win,
it.
we all win. So we want them to win. If we are willing to help them,
I
we are
would
willing to
love
make the
a
connection.
stable governance for
You
this
understand?
country through a stable government. It
Correct.
doesn't matter who there.
I am looking for good governance, Comrade Banwari. I am looking for good governance. So if it is that the Honorable Prime Minister can deliver that, I am in full support of such. But at the end of the day, if we go back to the original conversation in terms of the sustainability of the salary increases, we are coming up with ways of
On how it can be achieved.
Exactly.
It's like you're not getting that what we are discussing in ways in which
no,
the 10%.
it has some political animals outside there, you know. Trust what I'm saying. Some serious political
No, this
animals.
is not a pure case of strippery and no fish.
Okay. I understand what you mean.
Because you're not understanding that our thing is not about the government. You made promises. We want to help you, help us. The public servants need the 10%. We want to help you with ideas that could help us. One with Banwari or any of the other commenters throw in ideas that we can then research and come back to the platform and discuss openly. That is what I want to see. I want ideas generation. Because as it stands, the only one I could have come up with that in the shortest possible time, because we have the facilities available, is the medical tourism. It's $1 billion US industry.
Yes.
Right? And because of that, I am seeing that it is highly possible for us to revamp in the short, if even it takes them 5 years to give the 10% and more, the money will be there to do it.
Correct.
Yeah,
And that is what our focus is.
you see, people still in election mode, you know, and I, as I would have said, elections it over. That doesn't mean scrutiny must stop. In fact, now is the time when it begins. Voting is one step, accountability is step 2. So let the government go to work and let we do our work too. Because in terms of promises, performance, and the spending of the public money, not their personal financing, we must be critics to that. Because at the end of the day, if we have a government that is not functioning in the way that they ought to, at the end of the day, we feel it, we children feel it, we future.
The country felt it for 9.5 years. And if we do not nip it in the bud now, we're going to feel it for however long coming again. But I want to address a situation. Hold on. We do not have to do Brazilian butt lifts alone to make millions in the US and surgery. Let me explain. Children's surgeries alone, any of those comments or callers, I would want them to do either an AI research or an in-depth research as to what is the figure for the average surgery. Because last week I placed figures indicating that if that figure is steady, and every month we can do about 1,000 surgeries, even if we hire international doctors willing to come here and do it, we are going to make a million.
Right. And as I said too, as I suggested, even the CLA surgery of eye operations, cataract, all these things, that's
Do these
fast
people have an
on.
idea of how much these surgeries cost here in Trinidad? For the
Correct.
government to open it up to the regional market and international
The
market.
Commonwealth, just the Commonwealth, or the Caribbean, the CARICOM region.
Listen, we will have
We
a
are
lot of people
saying,
coming out of Canada, a lot of people coming out of the US and other
because
parts
it's
of
really
the world
cheaper.
because it would be cheaper for them to do so.
Correct, because let me put it to you all this way. If it is we are saying to these governments, listen, instead of you having to train your people and now build a facility, which is going to take years, we already have the facility, we already have the staffing, we just have to tighten up on it, and we could provide that service to you. We're collecting it in US. That in itself is going to raise significant revenue, and that is what Kes continues to say. We have the information, and I'll say something to the comrade who's giving the problems on the chat there. That even the Prime Minister, she may not have gone so far in her thinking, but based on her own pronouncements, the Honorable Prime Minister is saying that is the direction she wants to go in. But we are just showing her that it could even be bigger than just reopening the children's hospital for Trinidad alone. We are saying open it
Listen,
up to
and
the
the children's
entire.
hospital surgery, if they have
Yeah.
any idea what children's hospital surgeries amount to.
We know before we even talk about that, as we would have said the last time we had discussed, just thinking about having to go to the US embassy to rush to get a visa appointment,
Visa,
we will cut that time
you're
into
spending that money.
you're coming
Don't,
straight
we are
Trinidad.
not doing the maths to hear the logic in what we are presenting. Yes, it needs more development, but once it is developed, it is going to be one of the highest opportunities we have right now
Correct.
compared to what we are working on. We're working on the oil. When if it's not only my recollection, I remember in the last administration, not PNM, the one before, there was mention of a particular drill that was needed to tap into the oil in our waters before Guyana started doing anything. That drill was never purchased. So it means that we had to find out where we have oil. I hear they say in Tobago, I ain't too sure. Where we have the oil, drill and refine. And right now, where the cost of oil is down, to do one surgery for 2, 3 days posting is way more than the 1 barrel cost right now.
Well, what I would want to add to the conversation is this. We, the people, have consistently accused governments, past and present, for their lack of diversification from oil and gas. And what we are saying is that every time you bring up the conversation, it's like they're kicking the can further down the road. Yeah, we know it's important, but we go eventually get to that. We go eventually, and we end up, every government end up putting all the eggs and baskets into the same oil and gas. I am not saying not to do it. I am saying let us diversify, because I am listening to Mr. Jagdio Singh from Guyana, and he is learning and learning from our mistakes in Trinidad and Tobago, when we had our boom and our only focus was on oil and gas. We didn't bother with the sugar industry. We didn't bother with any other thing. We just focused solely on that.
Exactly.
They
And
are, they
that
are
is where our
continuing
drain went.
they are continuing to focus on agriculture. They are going to continue to focus on gold. They're still to continue to focus on wood, and they are going forward because the oil and gas is really the expatriates and they who are coming in there and pulling it out. So yes, they are getting royalties, although it's minimum, but they are not leaving out what their core resources are. And that is what we are talking about. We have said, let's finally, instead of only talking about it every 5 years, we're talking about it now, we complain about the diversification of the economy. How nice it would have been for Trinidad to invest into medical tourism, because even though there may be gas in Tobago, right? Are we willing to destroy the tourism product that is Tobago in search of oil and gas? Because accidents, whether we want to accept it or not, and I don't want to be a prophet of doom and gloom, but You will never find oil being produced and gas being extracted in areas where tourism is your main source of income, because it is going to be an eyesore to your foreign tourists. Imagine that white sand that you like to see when you go strawberry. Think about it getting brown like what we just see down in Point when we walk.
Hey.
What,
Don't talk about my point, Fortin, so.
what about the smell? The potent smell of gas. Are you unprepared to lose that?
Just so we have a call on the line here. All right.
One
Good night.
second, my battery is dying, so 1 second, please.
Good night, caller.
Yes, good night once again. I want to talk on the topic with the oil and gas. We have to depend on it right now, but we must diverse. We have to diverse into tourism, medical tourism, but it has some big issues there with the medical tourism, as I say. We understaff. We were told to get rid of the Cuban doctors. It will be costly to bring in doctors, lots of hospitals, but understaffed. Now, with the tourism, I mean the oil and gas, Guyana doesn't have a refinery to refine products, but they sell. Right now, we could get, a lot of fuel, what I should say, we should have a lot of fuel producing right now because, as you know, the US sanctioned Venezuela and they want Caribbean countries who used to purchase from Venezuela and have to depend on us, right? They will buy from us and they used to get fuel from Venezuela. And they were warned that if they purchase any fuel from Venezuela or even trust or butter, because what they used to do with Venezuela is butter, give food, okay, and they would get fuel and pay later, something like that. So not even that they could do. So who they really need help from is Trinidad and Tobago. You see? So we have that market there already and we have it in full, and other countries will want to buy from us because they cannot purchase any oil and gas from Venezuela. So this is why I say, let's drill, baby drill. Let us use what we have, boost ourselves, and diverse at the same time into the medical tourism, which will take some time. But if you plant fast crops and sell to CARICOM countries, instead of they having to buy from the United States, because it have CARICOM countries, they don't have land like us, they don't have fertile soil, and they buy from the US. So this is what they're even talking about, these CARICOM countries. Let's get together with farming, and farming will have to be through the government, not local farmers here and there. Let the government control the farming, like how, they had the sugarcane workers. So that's my point.
Okay. So I get her point and I agree with it.
Yeah, because what happened while you left, I had just spoken about the diversification of the economy, which is a conversation we only
But
have
we
seen
didn't,
in 5 years,
but
but
we're
we don't do anything about
consistently speaking about diversification.
it.
We are just looking at what is the highest paying currently if we look into it. But I know a lot of people are saying that we understaff. But I do not know if they're fully aware that we're not understaffed. The staffs at the medical facilities are all that are hired. There are a lot of nurses and a lot of doctors that do not have jobs because the government indicated, well, the last government indicated there was no money to hire anymore.
Well, because let me just interject on that point. I could speak firmly and decisively in terms of nursing personnel And I can tell you, we do have significant challenges. Many of our nursing personnel have migrated over
They
the
have,
past
because
10
during
years.
the time when no jobs were available, the UK had issued jobs availability. I think Switzerland was another country. So they went, and Canada. So they went where the jobs were.
Well, it's much more than that, because would have happened is that we would have stopped training because a certain union and the then government, um, there was a matter in court where they stopped training because they are saying that they want all nursing personnel and the schools that teach nursing personnel to be accredited, and nursing personnel must now pass out with a full BSc. And
Right.
what is
That's
taking
that.
place now? Let me tell you how critical and crazy this has become. It's actually going to take 4 to 5 years to train a nurse. And during that 4 to 5 years, they are not receiving any salary.
Salaries. Yeah.
So we have a serious problem in attracting male nursing personnel, especially. You understand? Because if it is, there's an ad that comes out in the papers tomorrow saying they want police, prison, army. You're going to see people maybe from Shogunas line up straight to Piaco or wherever they're going to do it. But if it is for nursing, you don't see the same thing in terms of meals, because persons simply cannot afford to go and do training for 4 to 5 years without receiving an income. So our profession has become very much unattractive to many men generally.
But is because I know that they used to have a nurses training program in the hospital that they had
Right.
moved
That was the
to
ministry. That was the
Costa.
BNF program. That was the
Right.
BNF program. And now they have discontinued that.
Continued that, and they had put
Right.
it into COSTAT, and then
Right.
instead of the associates, they indicated that a BSc is required.
Right. But the question is, does the job in terms of the employer, the government, the RHAs, do you need a BSc to become a nurse? And let me show you how ironic it is. We are saying certain persons that you must have a BSc. That's the way they want us to go. But you know, those international countries are taking your same nurses who have a
When
certificate.
the cook
So think about the irony of that.
oral, this is why I said they did not have the jobs, because I remember there were a lot of individuals after finishing, there were no jobs. I myself personally, when I started to see the international vacancies,
Mm.
I started to send out to people I knew who were struggling to get jobs in our medical institutions. And I know a good few people who left here and went to other countries to work. So even if we have to bring these people back home to do the job, if we really invest into the medical tourism, the money would be there to pay them back pay, vacation, to do all kind of somersaults we want.
And improve working conditions, because
And then everything else we
that
could
is
tap
the
into.
challenge. That is the challenge.
No, that is true.
So what the sister would have said in her statement, I understand where she's coming from, and I agree with her to a great extent. But some little things are a little bit, we mean, if it is we were able to meet around a table, we will be able to trash it out. But more importantly, I think the gist of what she's saying, her heart is in the right place. So I want to commend her for her statements in terms of agreeing with us that we need to diversify. Yes, she say, let's drill. But remember, drilling is not as easy and as cheap as it is. So it's not, it is a very costly enterprise. Hence the reason why the state does not do it. It is these private companies, because they are investing in drilling, hoping, let me repeat, hoping to find gas or oil, or gas and oil. But guess what? Sometimes they don't succeed. And that in itself means manpower. You have to pay salaries.
Cannot afford right now.
Right.
Correct. And
Seeing-
it is a significant cost.
Seeing that is the case, there's a voice note that somebody would have sent. Let me play the voice note. I don't want the audience to say that we're not taking your calls. So the people who would have called just now, or I could go ahead and call back. I'm very sorry. You know, my head was down a little bit. So
I'm gonna have to agree with Mr. Rima on this point. Um, the medical tourism, as I told you all last time, is a bad idea. Ain't no U.S. person coming to Trinidad to get no medical treatments. It's not gonna happen unless you're offering dental or BBLs or some kind of cosmetic surgery. The medical tourism is a bad idea for America. Maybe you can have Caribbean people coming in, but what kind of money you gonna get from them? Um, so I agree with Mr. Remo on the agriculture. We, as a country, the state should get into agriculture and use that for immediate foreign income exchange.
Now that was the comment from one of the person there, and somebody would have asked it in the chat as well. How much for a barrel of pepper mash? The last thing that I would have heard concerning that was I think $600. I can't confirm at this point. I don't know if it's TT or US, but it was 600. I would have went to a convention here in that it is $600 a barrel of pepper mash. That is crushed pepper, matter of fact. So yes,
Radisson, I want to just address this caller because he was on last week commenting the same thing.
Yes.
And I think he's consistently thinking our market is going to be the US. However, if your budget in the US cannot afford US medical services and you have a family member that is in need, these people go all the way to India for relief. So if an American decides that Trinidad is closer, we have the state-of-the-art facility that we would hope to present, and our qualifications in the different areas is adequate and top-notch enough. Because we're not going to take any random old person and throw them in here. We're looking for persons who can take us straight up to the top of the ladder. Once we acquire that, one, St. Clair Medical,
West Shore,
West Shore, 7-day Adventist,
Gulfview Medical, Southern Medical,
and the list could go on of the number of local private facilities that the Caribbean market tap into. I know people by name that have used our facilities for their renal failure, kidney failure. I know people by name who has come to Trinidad and Tobago for cancer treatment out of the Caribbean. I know people by name for eye, dental, come on, and by name. And when I say by name, I could call names on the different islands they come from.
But Kezia, his argument is hinging on the factor that that in America they have 100% medical coverage over there, and what could attract?
Ready? No.
No, but yes, I don't know nobody for this one.
Listen.
Well, that we engine the argument on, so you know.
Correct.
Right.
But it's a false premise because their system is very different to Trinidad. I mean, if you listen to persons like Bernie Sanders and former President Joe Biden, their aim was to follow the rest of the world and have national medical coverage for all. But their system is a private system. That Medicaid system is very different to Trinidad and Tobago.
Certain surgeries are not covered. Certain procedures are not covered. Even to have a baby, you have to pull out a mile of paperwork. And if the insurance say no, it's best you go to the sidewalk. So these people do the research.
Well, so slimy, you're coming with some false information in the chat there. Get cokes, drink a hot cokes.
What slimy is supposed to also state to us and the national community and international audience is that just up to today on CNN, it was quoted that some of the new measures by the new administration, they are trying to cut back on millions funded in Medicaid.
Yeah.
So clearly, many persons would be affected. And where do you
Which news are they watching? What statistics are
Where do you go? Where do you go? So what we are saying,
I ain't doing all,
yes, it's not all.
But the
Right.
thing is, what I have done, I can indicate that we can hire because we have doctors out in Nigeria. There was a point in time, a couple years ago, we had
Correct.
a Nigerian hospital.
And Indians as well.
Indians were influx here because when we had the need for
Philippines.
medical practitioners, we put it out there that we needed it. And many of them left their countries and came here to live. So if this is in a case where we needed to survive and create a monetary value to it, we can entice these same people to come. Because let me tell you something, the doctors and nurses that left this country to work in a lot of other countries, some of them, if you give them the opportunity to come back here and live under better living standards,
Working conditions. Working conditions, correct. And I would even go so far for Slimy to consider.
Noel,
All right, imagine we have a hospital here that is focused strictly on cosmetic surgery. Strictly on that. They are going to come.
that is an option.
They are going to
Yes,
come.
yes, we're taking all types. Right now, we know prejudice, we're taking all types. You want cosmetics, we doing that. You want heart, we doing that. You want whatever you
I
want
see
to do it.
whatever. And that is what we are saying. If it is we position ourselves, because we have the facilities, we may need to tighten up
See
the
what they do
trade.
at Porter, Spain and Arima Hospital.
Yeah.
And
Sorry,
we got
guys.
this one in Grande and the one in Point. Yes, what they do.
Noel, we had these statistics here. You know, the United States does not offer 100% free Medicare services to all residents.
Thank you.
Instead,
Thank you.
the healthcare system is a mix-up of public and private coverage. So
Ask AI. Let's
Yeah.
try to just ask AI before he come on.
So is what it say here. That is very striking. It say people primarily healthcare insurance, the Medicare service is people aged 60 and older, and there are certain people that could be eligible. You understand? You have to sign up and go through a stringent process. So I mean, slimy.
They go all together, but they know doing that will create a different turn up that they don't really want to get. So that is the reason why they're trying to decrease the liabilities on that particular service. But you ain't telling me under no how, if you don't have the money for surgery in the US, you have to take a loan to do it. And the same value of that surgery in the US, you can come and spend that less than that in Canada and get the same service.
7 to 10 times more bang for your buck. That is the bottom line. You get more bang. Let me tell Slimy, you get more bang for your buck. That's what you get.
We know it's not a cut and dry thing. It's a possibility. Even if it's not with cosmetic surgery, that alone is $1 billion industry. You know how much people go in Venezuela, going to Barbados, and going to all of these other places? You know the Bajan dollar is even more than the Eastern currency.
Yes.
Come on, man. And guess what? To stay and eat in Barbados is still more than staying and eating in Trinidad. Come on, make it sense now.
And not only that too, but remember the US citizens cannot go to Venezuela. They want to get surgeries done. Which is going back to the very same point we would have made initially. The amount of time it takes, even for us Caribbean citizens or CARICOM citizens, to get a visa, to organize yourself to go over there. Think about it from the reverse. Even Americans who would want to do these surgeries cannot do it in Venezuela. They would love to know that they could come and do those things in Trinidad and Tobago. Where they
Hold on,
Hey,
Patricia just asked the question. Let me answer that.
let me remind the callers that or you can go ahead and call in. If you want to put Slimy in the place, I'm sure you find me talking too much. You understand? Or you can call in. It's a live broadcast. Now is 9:05. Go ahead, Kezia. Go ahead.
Patricia is asking, if people come here to do dental, I could call names of 4 people around the Caribbean that recently came to Trinidad for veneers. Hear what I'm telling you? Veneers.
I could agree with you because
I don't know where it's Venice. I don't know where it's Venice. Tell me, where is that?
When your teeth ain't aligned and you have a lot of spaces,
Okay.
and you want to, and let's
Even it
say
out.
you have pieces as well, to
Yes.
even it off and give you a perfect smile, that is what a veneer is. So it's a cap over your teeth.
And I could tell you that even I know persons just quite recently, within the past 2 weeks, came to Trinidad to spend some money, have a good time, but take care of the teeth. They do not do it in America. They do
Okay.
it in America. They do it.
When everybody wins.
Correct. They do their what's called this, the braces. They do that in Trinidad. They don't do it over there. They get service down here. They don't do it over there. So we are not just. This is not a panchite where we're rum flowing and it will talk. No, this is serious solutions,
Yeah.
and we are fact checking.
You
Anybody come into this arena here,
Barbados did it.
make sure you blade sharp. You
yeah,
don't just
make sure it's sharp. You know oral just now. You talk about Venice. My cousin would have came from England, a matter of fact, to do a gold teeth in Trinidad. I say, boy, how you gonna come here? Well, oh gosh, the man say, boy, you know much of this over here? I said, nah. He said, down here, it's real cheap. And he come over here to do a gold teeth.
Whether you go in Alaska, whether you go in Timbuktu, whether you go in New Delhi, India, whether you go in Nigeria, whether you go in China, whether you go in America, whether you go in Canada, Mexico, no matter what part of the world, everybody is looking for more bang for the buck. Bottom line. Everybody looking to save a dollar. That is the bottom line. And you know what? With the medical tourism, they're looking for another experience. And this is where the other. So it's not just about medical tourism.
Other tourisms that we
We're
have.
talking about historical sites. We're talking about the taxis, the maxis getting hired to do tours. We're talking about beaches. The little auntie that could do a little sugar cake, the little tulum. They're looking for a local experience. They're looking for somebody to carry them down the swamp, down in the bird sanctuary. They want to go in Point of View and look at the birds. People look exactly. It is a ripple effect. So that when it comes just like the UNC slogan, when UNC wins, everybody wins.
Everybody
Once we
wins.
get the medical tourism up and running, everybody wins. And that is what we simply say. And that has nothing to do with UNC, PNM, PDP, top TTP. We're talking about economic sense. More bang for your buck. Because I am sure that the comrade that was giving problems on the chat, giving everybody who will talk, I am sure if the Honorable Prime Minister at the last Thursday's conference was able to be in a position where she could have given a date, a firm date, to say, listen, the monies will be available, that 10% salary will be available for public officers at the 1st of July, she would have said it.
Yeah, but with that oral what you saying there, I go and say yeah, she can say. I challenging Kamla Prasad Bisesa to tell the public where we getting that 10%.
Coming from.
I challenging she anybody here who are Kamala number who on the chat who listening, tell she I say Renaissance Jeffrey say that she can't give nobody that 10%. I say that. Yeah, I said I got to take full responsibility. I got
challenging you and I said once she find a plan, whether she choose this medical tourism that we're talking about or any other plan to generate money in the
Income.
country, shortest
She could do it. She could do it. She could do it.
to do it.
She could do it. But you know what I appreciate? If there's a will, that's the first thing we need. Once there's a
There's a
will,
way.
there's a way. We just have to be
And the
positive.
will is there. This is an industry that even people in the US and other parts of the world who cannot afford it in their country, and they could get what is enough to come to our country and do it.
They will
do
come.
it. You
We
would
just need to
not
take it
want
for granted.
your loved one to die.
Correct. We just have to make sure we take care of the crime. So we have to go on a sensitization of our citizenry. We have to start back with national pride, started back from in the schools. Because no matter how little you have, you have to be able to live within your means. We just have to start an education program of investments in terms of no matter how little, start back up with the unit trust. When last year they had good unit trust advertisement. Remember the unit trust used to be something advertising for the small man.
But
They
when
don't
last
realize
a credit union or a bank went into the
we need that conversation to start back in our society. And as I said, we want the government to succeed because I need my money as of yesterday. You understand? All politics aside, if the PM can tell me, Oral, your birthday coming up on the 10th of June, there, you go get your money in account, man, I'm happy like that.
And we know that's not going to happen, so come on now, oh God, let me dig sense some nonsense. That might never happen. And I keep saying might because I still want it to happen, you know. But we done in our deposit of $5 billion.
Ranison, I was going to touch this just now and I see a commenter put it in. Good, bad, or indifferent is Prime Minister. Even if I want to say honorable, she is Prime Minister.
Yes, she is.
To add some respect to the woman name.
Well, I always refer to her as
I will always say Prime Minister.
They
may not always get the honorable, but I will always say Prime Minister Kamala Persad-Bissessar, because at the end of the day, that is the accolade that she was given. And she ought to wear it. If she keep it, is what is the conversation is about.
So what time are we looking at, Renison? How much time?
No, well, I mean, we coming up to the border at the time. As matter of fact, we done already past the time already. But you know, I was searching for the video, so I could have played the video with that. Anyway, we done reach the time.
You could go on my United Public Officers Facebook page.
Of course, I can.
You can pull it from there because I did share it there for the interest of public officers for them to see and hear it from her when Akash would have asked the question of the Honorable Prime Minister about when would the salary negotiations be concluded. So it is there. So persons, if it is your online, which is obviously you are free to visit the United Public Officers Facebook page.
That was concluded the day election indicated the winner.
Yes.
Because understand what I'm telling you and why I'm saying this. The reason why that negotiations was concluded then, which is consideration, which she would be well aware of and understand the direction of coming from. Consideration was given. And she made it public that she will give the 10%.
So
in your spectrum, Oral,
so
president was chosen for the PSA on that premise.
Correct.
Let me play this. Let me play the video, Kezia. Let me play the video. Let me play the video.
I want it. I mean, I would. But I want it.
Right, this is the video here.
You think, when do you anticipate that negotiations will begin, especially with
I don't know if you guys hear it on your side.
As soon as we can.
You think, when do you anticipate that negotiations will begin, especially with the PSA, given the promise of that 10% increase?
As soon as we can.
It's still soft, Renison.
I can't give you a date.
It's still soft on your side.
I can't give you a date because tomorrow you tell me I said the 10th and today is the 11th.
Well,
so I will tell you as soon as we can.
Yes.
And what I am holding to her to is not what she said here, you know. I am holding her to what she said upon campaigning and winning elections. And that is what the people voted for. All she has to do is pull her merry men together, assess the economy, look at its viability, and tap into the soonest resources that will take us out of this rut.
Yeah.
And she could give her 10%. That is what I want. That is what I am demanding for the public servants of Trinidad and Tobago. I am demanding a better industry on the private sector that choosing to pay minimum wage alone when the minimum wage was designed to facilitate industries that did not have a specific benchmark in income, but allow them to pay increments by commissions and incentives when they actually achieve specific figures. You have places like Shoe Locker and one or two other stores in town that no longer give commission. How could a person only live on 31 something or 30 how much something a month,
$3,553
right?
a month.
Your grocery is the majority of that for a small household. Your rent, the basic 2-bedroom matchbox is that. Transportation, if you have to divide it between your children and yourself, or you have a vehicle, you're paying your loan, is that. So you can't focus only on the public servants when you have a minimum wage with private sector that take away commissions and other incentives that used to take employees up a notch. Because they're getting 300% and 400% profit to go home with. Because why? They mention off of what they're giving the employees that working day in, day out, breaking their back. Just the other day, and I will mention Pennywise as one of these stores. You know, I went to Pennywise. This girl was, her feet were hurting.
Just so, Kezia. Good night, caller. Hello, good night.
Yeah, good night. I
Good
just have a question. Where were you all when PNM was in government? You didn't have a voice
Doing
then?
the same thing. Doing the same thing we're doing
Exactly.
right now.
We were
Doing
just
the
doing
same
it
thing.
in different places. We decided to ban forces now. We're doing what they call it, Captain Planet. We were in different places doing our own thing and we realized it wasn't working. And we had to combine our powers so that we will get a Captain Trinbago.
Not only that, you know, but you see, the caller is delving right back into basic partisan politics because he's viewing what we are seeing as an attack on his government. And this is not his
But
government.
it's not an
It's
attack.
our
Just
government.
so the caller still on the line. So caller, what you have to say in your defense concerning that? Hello. Well,
Cricket.
I am pro Trinbago.
well, you hear what you say. You say where? So
pro-government.
Kezia, wait. So where were you when PNM was in government? That's why I want to hear. Where were you?
Well, to be quite honest, there were every so often I used to write letters and send it out. In different forums, I used to share my ideas. But arrogance was at an all high. So now that I realize on my own I wasn't getting anywhere, I was happy for the opportunity to band together with a few people that are like-minded. That is not about party, because whatever party we vote in, if they still don't do what is for the people, then it means everybody lose. And everybody that's on the ground, don't get it mistaken, because the high-ups remain there.
Well, Comrade Sister, let me just add to what you're saying. I would really like to thank the caller for even viewing the program. But again, reinforcing that this is not a us versus them scenario, comrade. And I think you need to understand that. What we are simply discussing here is us all succeeding. We are all looking at success. We could have come on this program and do like many others and just criticize and critique. This is not criticism. Well, let me consider it healthy criticism.
Constructive criticism.
And it is really constructive, healthy criticism that is leading to constructive criticism. And we are all partnering with the government to move Trinidad and Tobago forward, because the PNM is not on the leadership of it's not in the leadership, it is the UNC, and therefore is the UNC we have to speak to. We can't talk to the PNM now. They're in opposition. They had their time. They had their own issues, in fact. So we are focusing on the current administration, how we can succeed. Because once this administration succeed, we all succeed. Go ahead with the caller.
Right. Good night, caller. Hello, good night.
Hello, good night.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is KFC. That Earl Sanders, eh?
Yes, that Earl Sanders.
Tell Mr. Ken Mala.
That when a woman beat them real bad. Because he was signing with Jennifer Frederick. All them is PNM. Yes, yeah, she's a die-hearted PNM. I was never hearing them talking so for the last 9 years. But them was 10% and the all kind of percent. When you only give them 5%, 4%, there was never pressure in the PNM. So, yes, yeah, she a Balize blood. She loves PNM. I know she personally my neighbor. They was never pong in PNM. So, and the host, who's just talking here?
Yes, I know who is that? KFC.
Right. Mr. Stoners and them is PNM, you know. That's why the woman beat them back because she choose her side.
Comrade,
she choose that side. Mr. Stoner, I don't hear all this PNM. All of never talking so to the PNM for the last 9 years. Let the government take its time and work with the people and them. I would
not say that.
Well, Kessie, thanks for the call. I leave it around Saunders and Kessie to answer as to that. To say,
just 1 second. And I'm glad that he came on because I wanted to be able to understand that at some point in time, we all were PNM. At some point in time, the same people that voted in PNM voted in UNC. The same people. And when that UNC government didn't do what they wanted, the same UNC voters voted back in PNM. So now that they're back to voting in PNM, I am a PNM. I will wear that yellow. You want to give me a color? I will take whatever color is the government of Trinidad and Tobago to do what they are rightfully designed to do.
Well, Kessie, however, I cannot give into that mindset. And I know that is something that a lot of persons share because they simply think that choosing to protect the jobs of public officers meant that you are pro-government. And as I said, and I have always said, that when it comes to trade unionism in the public sector, and KMC, I know you for a very long time, and you should know better than that to come on a public platform to come with that nonsense. If you were paying attention to me, if you go up on my United Public Officers Facebook page, you will see me denouncing I was neither yellow nor red because I was PSC. PSC is a public sector union, and really and truly my focus was always that there was no room for partisan politics because the union represents persons of diverse political persuasions. We have UNC members, we have PNM members, we have PDP, we have all the different types of TPP members in the union. So my focus has always been on the membership of the PSC. I was never in a political box, and coming tonight to make a statement with no facts to back that up, that doesn't augur well for you being an entertainer. I know if your show get cancelled, it was supposed to be on the show tonight, and maybe you didn't perform or something like that. I don't know what's going on with you there.
No, well,
listen, Oral,
you see, we ought to reach.
You do that. Renison,
we have a second caller here. We have a second caller. Good night, caller.
Hello, good night.
Yes, good night.
Good night.
Level all this volume here. AKFC not easy. He does make me laugh. Yes? He does fight for the UNC, you know. It's fight right through, you know.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, don't take him on too much. It have a lot he don't understand. He and others, not only he and a lot of others. Some of them well educated and they still can't catch what's going on because they in the politics here alone. Right now is a geopolitical war. It have a lot of things involved in the geopolitics and it have things we can do. Like I was
Well said.
telling somebody the other night on a talk show, Trinidad and Tobago cannot buy gas from Guyana. A person now mentioned that on the chat. We cannot buy any gas there for the fact that the Venezuelan government saying that the gas is their gas. The Essequibo is their region, and the
Just before the
gas
court.
out in the
Yes.
Atlantic Ocean, we cannot go there to take any gas because it will
Not
have conflict now with Trinidad and Tobago and the Venezuelan president, who is a terrible fella.
yeah.
He have warships out there and not even a pipeline could go there. Experts speak about it when Miss Bissessa came out stating that she's going to ask Guyana for gas after they insult us after that
Yes.
statement. It's Jagdev, yes,
Yes.
Jagdev,
Yes. Yes.
the
Yes.
vice president, he
Yes.
insulted us. And then in Grenada, they don't really have any gas there. The thing kept off because its sanction is some
Yes.
Russians. The Russians was who exploring, and that is sanctioned. So we not mess with energy. And we
Correct.
don't want to get in conflict with the Venezuelan government because Guyana already in conflict with them. Right? So that Essequibo, you have to think of it as Venezuela. He annexed it. He have a governor in the region there, and they have war vessels waiting for anybody heading to Southeast Trinidad to the Columbus Channel to jam them and send them back. And they did that already with some tanker that went to take out fuel that, well, I should say, receive fuel from the platform where ExxonMobil doing a lot of drilling there in Guyana. So that
There
is
was
our
a situation
position.
that happened this week
And it's
here.
not only I say so, this is in the news. I listen to the Venezuelan news every day. Remerson, you know that. We just be in contact. And as I say, experts here from Trinidad spoke about pipeline will be impossible to put there. And even if we take gas from Guyana in vessel, same speed. The camp, he wouldn't allow it to pass. And this government is not friends with the Nicolas Maduro regime, like how Rowley, the PNM, was, together with them on this dragon gas. Everything's scrap with that, as we know. So, I don't know. We just have to work with what we have. They said they found some gas in some onyx field somewhere there by Guayari, and there's gas in Tobago just there to, do some drilling with Shell or maybe BP. And we should work with that because that is what we have. So good night.
Well, thank you, caller. Thank you. So, as I am saying, Oral Saunders, I know that Jennifer is in the same union that you are in. I mean, she's a PSA personnel, but we must reach to a point. Let me show you something. You know what has fret me? We must reach to a point that we're able to criticize anything that we see without people saying that we is this or we is that, or without having the labels. Putting the labels on certain things keep us away from having positive conversations. If I see the UNC doing something that is bad, oh God, there's not. Let me show you something. There's not angels. We're supposed to be able to come and criticize the same thing with the PNM, and not no label shall be placed on it. And I just
Let me just say this because Oral, you would have mentioned not holding any labels. And I want to indicate that there's a saying that when you can't beat them, you join them. And I say that to say this. When I made the statement just now that if I am UNC now, I will wave at you, it was not in agreement with the poll because we know what our platform is established. We are established on government and governance. So whatever color anybody wants to paint me, I will gladly wear it. Simply because the resounding cries of the nation is one that requires a government on good governance. And it is imperative that we understand that no matter what color you assume someone is, has no bearing on the fact that the program.
Good night, caller. Sorry about that.
Good night, Mr. Jeffries.
Yes, good night, sir.
Your two panelists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good night.
Ms. Kezia and Ms. Saunders. So
Yes.
my question is, you're talking about medical tourism, right? So, but do Trinidad have the infrastructure for that? And the reason why I ask that question, because we have a bad stigma throughout the COVID-19 that we wasn't able to facilitate 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people who was infected. We have to place them under a tent. So that stigma is around the world and how many deaths it had. And all over the world, there's prices that is reasonable for doing surgeries, and we're not talking about cosmetic, we're talking about medical surgery, life and death. What is the track record of Trinidad and Tobago when it comes to that? Do we have a reputable establishment that we established around the world, or is something we're going to start from scratch? And in order for us to do that, we cannot be opening a wing of a hospital with one floor and nothing on it. That says a lot to the world. And I would appreciate if we do have medical tourism. And all the comments where everybody's saying that agriculture and all of that is good for diversifying. But it's the infrastructure we need to develop in Trinidad. And the only problem we have in Trinidad right now with stopping that is the crime, because we're not getting investors. And we need investors who is legitimate and not corrupted. Because this is something we need to get out of the index, the corruption. Because we're high on the chart. So thank you very much and have a good night.
Yeah, thank you, caller. So, or that back right up your field. Let me hear what you had to say about that.
Well, I only heard the comrade in mid-air, but
I want to touch on it, Oral, and you'll get the gist, and then
yes,
you conclude it.
Yeah, because what I'm saying is that based on what he's saying, I agree. From what I would have heard, I agreed with him, and he would, if it is he was paying attention to what I was saying, is that our attitude, it has to start with us. This is all saying we have to go on a different kind of campaign about patriotism and us appreciating each other and not painting each other in political boxes simply because we have a different point of view. So he is correct. If it is we do not put a handle on crime, but to me, before we could start the handle on crime, we have to address the man in the mirror. We have to look at ourselves as fellow brothers and sisters. That's where it has to begin with. It has to begin with how I train my sons and how they show respect to you as a stranger. You understand? I'm not saying you have to bow down to anybody, but we have to start it from the homes, because there's an element that Kez was talking about and you were talking about in terms of the minimum wage, which was roughly up just over 3,005. But there's another angle of this entire scenario that I feel you all did not hit on tonight, which is most of the persons who are at the minimum level receiving minimum salary, they are not working one shift now. Most of them are working more than one shift in order to make more than that 3,005. Yes. And what it means to me, when I, especially as a person in the psychiatric profession, working as a part of the nursing team over the years, we are seeing the fallout from absentee parenting. When there are no parents around to supervise children are getting into all sorts of unwanted activities. So you may be making the money, right, Renison? You might be making the money to keep yourself afloat, but at what cost?
Yeah.
What cost to your own family life? And this is an element that we have to also address, because the more time I spend away from my family trying to make a dollar means to say I am leaving my children up to their own devices. And what do
Exactly.
children do? Wouldn't they now look at other persons who are getting money and want to emulate them, with the flashy car, the flashy jewelry? You don't have no money, but that is the only thing your ambition is on, because those are the persons who will now want to take advantage of the absentee mother who want to work for more than 12 hours, 24 hours, sometimes 36 hours in one stint, leaving a young girl home, 14, 15 years old, fellas to come around. You understand? So it has a rippling effect even in the psyche of the country. So this is why I'm saying that we have to start the conversation not only about the crime as in persons with a gun or something like that, but we have to start it with just us loving one another and appreciating one another, caring for one another. There was a time when we used to look out for each other's children, although it wasn't our children. There was a time we used to be happy for the other man's child who was doing well in school, although your children wasn't doing so well. You were still happy. You still wanted to help the
Because
grocer in the
somebody
community.
out of the neighborhood would have made it out, and
Correct. The
he's the
grocer,
evidence.
the shop owner in the community, knowing that you have a son, Renison, that going to press, would have called you when you went to buy something and say, boy, well, congratulations, I see your son going press. Pass so time, and I want to buy a shoes frame, or I want to buy a book frame, because the thinking back then was once your child succeeded, the community succeeded. So
True.
when we see persons like this new member of parliament, his name escapes me now. He would have come through the beatum, and
Yeah,
now he's a lawyer, and now he's a Carrie Marcel, I think his
Marcel.
name is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. That success story, he did not reach to that position of success on his own. It had to have a lot of persons investing in him. And I'm just using him as an example. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm just simply saying that is the type of thinking and the mentality we need to return to, so that we could find other Kareem Marcells. We could find other Kamala Prasad Bissessas. We could find other Stuart Youngs. We could find other Leroy Batistas, all these various persons who would have been successful. We need a community, and we need persons to care for each other and care for one another. And although you may have your challenges, the fact that they are succeeding, we have to put our heads together, as Kezia rightfully said, and let the community support these persons. So that I saw recently on Facebook where a community responded to two elements, let me just call them pests, that came into the community to interfere with certain persons. Look at how that community responded. I'm not endorsing what they did, but I'm simply saying this is the times we're living. People have to come back together. We have to protect one another, because I could stop Renison from probably breaking in my house, but if Renison come with Kezia and a whole posse, or they go break into my house, I wouldn't be able to stop all of you all.
Yeah.
But if my neighbors hear in the commotion, and although they don't talk to me or I don't talk to them, they still feel it of a need to come to respond to my situation, because today could be for me and tomorrow could be for them. That is what we want to get and inculcate back into the communities.
Well, I would like to say thanks, because, brother, that was my community that would have responded to them two pests.
Well done.
You
Well
understand?
done.
We don't take them thing
Well
down
done.
here. People don't rob and things, so it does have it. It had the element right, but oh God, we don't have to tolerate them type of thing.
Well done.
But I like the idea that you say bring back that community love. Is that what we are missing here in Trinidad? You don't have eyes all over the place. You understand? Sometimes you at work, the child at school, and I mean, we're supposed to cultivate a more honest and a just society to move forward. I really
Correct.
agree with that 100%.
Yes, correct. Because I am saying, you seen a young lady go walking home in front of your house. You don't have to know her parents to look out for her as she passing in front of your house to make sure that she passed safely. You don't need to be a family member to be looking out. You understand what I'm saying? And that is what we need to return to. You understand?
Decline days.
Yeah. We
But
need to,
let me just say something, Oral, because I want to make sure that the caller that asked the question was answered. Now, we indicated that there's a stigma over Trinidad and Tobago,
Just,
as we could not tell.
yes, yeah, we have a caller online. Good night, caller.
Go ahead.
Comrade, the host, you have to
Yes.
congratulate your community too, because for the last 10 dollars all about us concerned voting PNM, and I get rid of PNM. And your community get rid of the PNM?
Yeah, we get rid of the PNM down on
Labyrinth,
this side.
Byrons, and Point 14.
Yes,
That's
and Point
right.
14 as well.
I listen to Mr. Rima, that she let her talk geopolitics and things like that. Our next program, she takes a racial comment on the program, black people sell out.
Well, she would have felt so in a KFC. She would have felt so in it.
Eh?
I say she would have felt so, you know.
Mr. Rima, I know she personally just banned from all different other programs and all them kind of thing. And when tell me not defending no UNC, no, I just don't like PNM. Because I grew up in a PNM stronghold. I know how they shoot PNM.
All right.
And Kezia know that too. She grew up in a PNM stronghold and watched the community for the last 40-something years. It's just one way. So I love to understand. I don't like PNM. Fire burn PNM.
and I will tell you something, that young man, you know, I thought it was KMC, but now I hear you saying KFC.
Yeah, it's KFC,
Right.
KFC.
My apologies. I thought it was my partner KMC. This is why I'm saying he would know better than that. But KFC doesn't know me. He doesn't know me. But you know what I could. What
So Ronald, so wait now. So he's saying he pretended he know you then.
Yes. They don't know my history.
Yeah. I understand.
If that person had known my history, they would never make a comment like that. They would know better. They would know that Oral is a fighter regardless, and Oral is fighting for good governance in his union. And the PNM or the UNC, I respect the will of the people. The people have spoken. The people have chosen new leaders for our country, and we have to respect them.
Yeah, but when that might be true for general election, I could say that is not true for PSA election. I could say that is not true. You see, let me show you something, Oral. I don't want to carry on and go into no depths in that conversation with you on this platform. But what I can say is this. That I am aware that there have been dishonesty within the election process within PSA. And there is nobody outside of WASA that could win the presidency. The harder thing set up. I say it here on this platform. So the next person that is going and take over after Felicia decide to give up, or if she decide to cut a deal with some other political party, I don't know. If she decides so, that position is rolling over to another WASA person. And that is how it is structured.
That is a fact. That is a fact that cannot be contested. I agree 100%.
So, or you read between the lines. The other read between the lines. It rigged. I telling you that. And I challenge anybody to say anything different. And when that time come, I go start to make certain things public.
But
it has nothing fear about the election in PSA.
We had this discussion way before the election. So what it was, we knew.
We have a caller online. Good night, caller.
Yeah, good night again, Jeff, and good night, everybody. No, we're talking about community development and all that, but we're not discussing the number one factor that's not helping the community is education. We need to start to have areas available for after school activities for education wise.
Yes,
this caller ahead of us, because this was our next show in Renaissance. This was the next show because this ties into also national security,
Yeah, go ahead, caller.
Yeah, and what else we need in the communities, in the community centers, is psychologists and nutritionists. We need to know who's the children who is suffering with depression, and we need to know the children who is malnutrition.
Yes.
And we need to find out different things. We need to take it from the community, and what they're saying is correct, but we need to have different things implemented. Psychiatrists, nutritionists, we need to have people like you all, Renison, speaking to the children, trying to show them get past prisoners, past baby moms who have single moms who who know the hardship of making the wrong choices and speak to these kids. And we need to start to root out the problem from a young age. So that
I
is
am
the
with you,
next one.
comrade.
All right.
I am with you
Look on this.
100%, comrade.
Excellent, excellent
Yes.
contribution, caller. Just so we have our next caller here online. Good night, caller. How are you doing? Hello? Yes, good night, caller. I need you to properly. Your phone a little low.
Hello?
Yes, good night, caller.
Pleasant good night.
Right, so what is your contribution tonight on Trinidad Social Talkonomics?
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we're hearing you, comrade sister. Go right ahead. I think we're having some technical difficulties because we are hearing her, but clearly she's not hearing us.
Nah, she's not hearing. So, caller, you need to call back if you.
Call back. Yeah,
yes,
call back.
yes, call back. So
yeah,
what
well,
you?
The last comrade would have made some very serious points there, and I am hoping that what he's saying could come into effect because I heard the new honorable Minister of Health is saying that we are going back to the polyclinic system where we would have health centers, extended working hours, and in those health centers, you would have mental health officers assigned, psychiatric social workers. All of these persons are normally assigned to a health center and to a clinic to give that follow-up treatment, the homework centers. That to me is what the community center is supposed to be doing. And we could do it on a community basis in terms of persons who would have been successful with mathematics or successful in their jobs. They could come in and volunteer for our, and the Prime Minister and the new government could find some way to reward persons like that, whether it is a tax exemption, some rebate in the tax return at the end of the year for community work. We do not have a patriotic spirit towards Trinidad success. And that has to begin, as the caller rightfully said, start from the grassroots in the communities.
And you see, let me tell you some more. What close to my skin concerning as they say that. Now, I am on a group here that people are a committee, a matter of fact, that is advocating for a specific doctor to be reinstated back into the hospitals. And I have a niece that would have studied medicine, and she would have talked about the racialism and the racial state at the hospitals in terms of where doctors is concerned, where training is concerned. And I am saying that, yeah, what's going on? In Trinidad and Tobago, we need a revamp of what's taking place. There are certain sets of people that, as I say, that is not educated in a particular way, that how to say that blocking and holding down certain position and making, and in turn it is not being available to the rest of the general public. We have a problem here in Trinidad and Tobago. It's bad. And you see, talking about this, there are people that would have gotten their education, would have went the same nights as study. But when position is made available, there are certain people that is manipulating and holding down certain position in such a way that it does not become available to a particular set of people. And I believe that going into the next type of discussion next week, we should dive into these type of things because it's real serious here in Trinidad.
You see, guys, we wanted to, just let me interject just a bit there. And I'm grateful for all the callers, all the comments regarding the program. But the thing is, we were trying to take topics in sequence that this show wouldn't be all over the place. We focus on different things and development. So when I said just now that the last caller is ahead of us, is because one of the topics that we want to go into is national security. And part of national security will be to develop community programs to rechannel the thought patterns and behaviors of communities, the people in the different communities. Additionally, to at least help the individuals that need that holistic help. So whether it's the homework center, the trade centers, because I remember back in the day, the community centers would have things like batik, if I'm saying the name incorrectly, where you do handcraft, tie-dye and those type of things, basket weaving, and all of these different things to influence in the people in different communities to generate income based on the skill sets they have. So understanding that we have a lot of callers showing in, a lot of comments and stuff at us, it's not that we haven't taken any of those things into consideration. We have, and we encourage the ideas to help us channel more topics for the show. But on a weekly basis, we like to focus on particular things that we could develop, and then we let it go and move on to another topic and develop that, because the government is not made up of one ministry or one operation or one authority. It's a facet of them, a number of them that needs to come together to present good governance.
Could I interject? I agree with you in terms of structure, and it may be difficult for persons to understand the structure of the program. But one of the things I would want to humbly suggest to both you all as producers and hosts of the show is to probably have an open decide which day of the week or the month that you have an open forum where persons could call in to discuss what is affecting them. Yes, and we discuss it. You know, you have an open forum that everybody, because everybody's going through their own struggle. You're seeing people smiling.
That's supposed to be on Wednesdays, but with my for traveling and that kind of thing, when as soon as pulling to trying to get me to pin down for that additional day. It was discussed because we know that those type of conversation would allow us to hear what the people have to say.
What they experience.
Present.
Yes.
So I agree with you wholeheartedly, Oral, that is something that we need to really do. I will have to find some time in my schedule to factor it in, because clearly when we decided we wanted to give this show an hour, we are way over.
Well, that's the reason why I want to come to this point. Kezia, you reach straight to the point that I want to come to. No.
Well, Oral, I'm sorry for you. That's all I can say.
So we reach the closing of the program, and let me put our closing comment to this, because Oral want to go and up and he talk about the 20 letters beer and he just get it just only. So we come into the closing of the program. So the many of you that are joining us here live on the chat and then putting your comments up on the chat, we can't read everything. That is why we have the numbers there. Or you call the numbers is 333-2176. But next week Saturday, we're trying to make this thing, a customary thing from 7:30 on our Saturdays. I don't know about inside Junior Week. I don't know what's going on with Kezia with this thing Junior Week.
But I will try. We will strive for this Wednesday. We will strive. I may be traveling, but if I'm not traveling that day, definitely we can lock it at least for an hour.
So my closing comment is this. It mustn't be that when we criticize any individual or you label us and put us in a box. Election would have just been over. It's done. Now it's time for the government to govern Trinidad and Tobago, and we must remain stalwarts. I mean, let me answer this last call. Last call for the night. As a matter of fact, the caller hang up. Kezian and Mr. Sanders.
Yes,
what is your comment? What is your closing comment?
Well, first and foremost, let me thank you all once again for this opportunity to really share some ideas that I have in my head, and some of the experiences. I think your program and your platform, clearly it is reverberating on the ground. It is a grassroots program, and persons are indeed they coming in.
Yeah, let me answer this caller. Last caller for the night. Good night, caller.
Yeah. Good night. I don't know if you're time. What a good program. I know Kezia and I go try a little more money in this program of Fish Grabber from Friday to Saturday.
Yeah, she go try a little more dust.
Yeah, she go try a little more. She had that center. But if she talk about the community center, she got a nice community center for the last 9 years with the bill, the PNM bill. I see no programs going on in that community center down and the Silla basketball court, you know. Actually, what that nice community center. Actually, I actually see a program going on down there with the youth and them.
No, but KFC she right there, they can ask her, you know.
That coming. That coming, my brother. It coming.
Yes, well, let me finish my closing comments because, as I say, I'm going to get tonight. So, you know, I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be here to share some of the ideas. I appreciate every caller, even the ones that disagreed with us. We appreciate your efforts and your suggestions, and we take your criticism as well as something that is necessary for us to grow. And I am hoping that you all would find persons out there who have the wherewithal to help sponsor this program so that you could make the program bigger and it could really reach people in the grassroots wherever they are. And that I am hoping that the government is indeed successful, that we could get some alleviation to the suffering of the public officers and those other persons who are on fixed incomes of 2013 in 2025. So I am looking forward to the government success. I am ready to assist wherever I can. If called upon, I am willing to assist. But the rebuilding of Trinidad and Tobago must begin from our homes. Block by block, we have to rebuild it. We can't give up on the country, because if we give up on our country, all is lost. So let me say a pleasant good night to you all, my hosts. I'm thankful to you guys and for the listening community. Thank you all so much for allowing us into your homes, into your spaces for the past 2 hours or so. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Saunders.
Earl, I do feel sorry for you. Just put your hand over your head and take it on your back. But thank you to the publics that we have, every caller, every commenter, every listener. I personally I've been involved in different things, and a lot of the things that I was involved with was out of Trinidad and Tobago. So somewhat answer some of the commenters. And then I realized what was the old saying, that charity begins at home. Trinidad and Tobago is my home. Trinbago is my home. It's my passion. I am proud to represent them. However, because there is a need, we are here. And we are here in our numbers to support and let everything that has to be done take its place, and to channel stimulating conversation in the right direction so that we can get Trinidad and Tobago where we need it to be. I appreciate every one of you for your comments, for your inspiration, for even the criticisms. And I encouraged you to continue with it because it's going to encourage us to do more. Thank you all. Good night.
A politician dies and ends up at the pearly gates. St. Peter looks at him and finds his name in his book. So you're a politician. Well, yes. Is there a problem? Oh, no, there is no problem. But we have a policy for people in your profession. You have to spend a day each in heaven and hell, and then you will be free to choose where you want to spend the rest of eternity. Why can't I choose now? Why do I have to spend a day in hell? Well, that is the policy. First, the politician spends a day in heaven. He sees angels singing and people playing harps. He finds heaven very boring for him. Next, he spends a day in hell. Upon arriving there, he expects to see barren wastelands with rivers of lava and people being boiled alive, but instead sees lush greenery and a large 5-star hotel in front of him. At the hotel entrance, he sees Satan wearing a tuxedo and sipping on a martini. This isn't what I expected hell to be. Oh, hell has been completely misrepresented. We have a luxury 5-star hotel with 7-course meals prepared by the best chefs. And we have all the sporting facilities you could imagine with a very large pool. All this is for free. So the politician spends the entire day playing golf and eating his meals by the poolside. At the end of the day, he sleeps in the most luxurious bed he could imagine in a very large suite. The next morning, when he wakes up, he is back at the pearly gates where St. Peter is waiting for him. So, what will it be? I can't believe I'm saying this, but I prefer hell. So the politician is transported back to hell, where he sees a barren wasteland illuminated only by the glow of rivers of lava, and hears the screams of people being tortured. The air is full of the stench of sulfur. Once again he sees Satan in his tux. What happened to the hotel, the golf course, the pool, and all the greenery I saw yesterday? Well, yesterday we were campaigning. Today you voted.